too much.
Shall we start? Let me guess, they say you're mad because you dream. Roadless maps, nameless destinations. Coward! You reek of talent, think you're different, unique. We'll see. You're dying to invent. Do the not yet done, possible the impossible, but not all alone, with someone like me. And who am I? Some call me the train, others opportunity, the chance. I'm more than you know yet. Your missing part. What you still are not, what you want still, what you need still. I can point the way, be the anthem to sway, the card you need, and the voice you need. I'm the obstacle, the shortcut, memory, fortune, a helping hand, the perfect moment, the right step forward, for moving onward, the opposite shore, the promised land. I'm the mistake, the applause, the problem, the solution, the pitch, the goal. I'm Marion, I'm Carl, I'm David, I'm Beth, I'm Frank, I'm Ria, I'm Ali, I'm Jeff, Bachelor, I am you. Shall we start?
Hello everyone, great to be here. My name is Julien de Waal. I'm the head of Incubation at Demium Malaga, an international startup builder. Today we are all super excited to welcome one of the co-founders of the legendary Starbucks coffee company, Zev Siegl. I've been talking with Zev for quite some months now, and he's a passionate startup mentor. He meets online with leaders from new ventures and new startups, including one of our very own in Demium Malaga, Doggies In Town. He's a counselor to MBA candidates and a global presenter who speaks regularly to entrepreneurs and executives from around the world. I like to tell everybody, please give a warm welcome from his hometown, home office in Seattle, Zev Siegl. Good morning.
Good morning. Greetings from Seattle, Washington, and the Northwest United States. It's really an honor to be here.
Great to have you with us. And have you had your first coffee already, or?
I've had two.
Two. I think
I need to wake up, because of the time difference between the West Coast and Spain. I had to get up a little bit earlier than usual, so I went straight for the espresso machine.
I can imagine. I think a lot of people must be asking themselves, how many coffees does he have a day? Does he have a lot of coffees a day? I mean, how many do you really have a day?
Well, I'm up to 5 or 6 now, and it's almost always a double espresso.
Yeah.
beyond 6, they have to pull me off the ceiling. I get a little too high.
I think that's for quite a few people as well. Thanks so much for being here. It's a real pleasure to share your journey, to share your experience and your story. We're really happy that you're here. When you build such an iconic company, what entrepreneurs usually want to know is where did it all start and how did it all start? So can you transport us back in time, Zev, into how it all started?
Well, that's a good image, actually, transporting back in time. I like that. At that time, we're talking about the fall of 1970, really a long time ago. In Seattle and in most cities in the United States, there was no gourmet coffee industry. Zero. Nothing. Mm-hmm. There was just regular low-quality coffee that people would order in restaurants and make at home. They'd drink it like water. My partners and I think your audience will like this. My partners and I, Gordon Bowker and Jerry Baldwin, we were friends. And we each had been to college, we'd graduated, we had our first jobs, we were pretty happy guys. But we wanted just something a little bit more from life. I think your audience would understand that. We wanted, a little more adventure from what we were doing, 10, 12 hours a day. Mm-hmm. And so we started meeting to see if we could come up with ways to do that. And we immediately decided, well, the answer, of course, is to start a business. But you have to, in transporting back in time, you need to know that the whole world of entrepreneurship, the praise that entrepreneurs get, the many organizations like Demium did not exist. No. There was just no entrepreneurship culture at all. People got a job, they went to work.
Yeah.
So we started making lists of things we could do and companies we could start. Very funny list. I wish I had it. I wish I had that piece of paper. While we were meeting, at one of our meetings, we were in a little restaurant. It was a French restaurant. And the waiter at the end of the meal kind of surprised us, came back to the table. He said, hey, would you guys like to have espresso after your meal? And we said yes. But while he was gone getting the espressos, we talked with each other and said, that's the first time. That's never happened in Seattle to us. And so he brought the coffees back. It was terrible. You cannot imagine how bad that was. You would never drink a coffee like that today. Mm-hmm. And so we added that to the list. We said, hey, maybe we can bring good coffee to Seattle. That's pretty big ego to say that.
We also have photos of.
Let's look at a couple of those photos, Julien.
To really go back in time, have a couple of photos. How you started, it's really interesting.
So here we are. That's Jerry Baldwin on the right, and that's me on the left. I do not own that shirt anymore. We're standing in the first store, which we are building with our own hands. Gordon Bowker is just out of the frame of this picture, I think. And we built it with our own hands because we were a little undercapitalized. Mm-hmm. So, the three partners, fortunately, as it turned out, and this was very good luck, each had a different set of skills. Mm-hmm. So I'm a startup guy, and I was comfortable with the difficulties of Starbucks startup. Jerry Baldwin turned out to be, much to his own surprise, a really good financial leader. He managed our finances, our relationships with investors, and he was the person who did our forecasting. Gordon Bowker turned out to be a masterful marketer. And he, right after Starbucks, he started doing market positioning work for big companies through an agency that he started. So you had these three guys who actually had a good balance of skills, and it really helped. Can we look at another picture?
Which is really important, just to say that the three co-founders back then, I mean, this is kind of what we do at Demium as well. We try to find the right profiles collaborate together and build a startup, and they have different profiles: marketing, technical, and business. So
that's good to put teams like that together. This is a picture of the interior of our first store, probably taken just before we opened. You can see the bins of coffee underneath the counter. There were 3 gigantic scales on that counter right after this picture was taken, and in those cupboards behind is our line of teas. So this was a very traditional type of store, but it was a new take on it, and certainly it was a new take in relation when it comes to our relationships with customers. We had a good strategy for that. And the amazing thing about this picture is that my partners and I built everything you see.
Wow.
We built it by hand, again, because for the first store, we didn't have enough money.
Yeah. Sweat money, right?
We call that, in the United States, we call that sweat equity.
Exactly, yeah.
You do it, well, today, sweat equity is writing code. You write the code yourself because you can't afford to pay somebody else to do it.
Yeah. And you talked about your customers, and customers is key. I mean, the number one reason why startups fail is due to not having a market need or not finding the market need. So, when you define a startup, your startup idea, you really need to identify a market need. How did you find a market need back?
Well, remember the story about the fateful cup of coffee at the French restaurant. So we knew there was a need. I mean, if a good French restaurant was serving bad coffee, that meant everybody was, and then they were. So we were quite sure that there was a need. Just to be sure, we did research all over the country, but at that time there was no internet, so research was
no Google,
primitive. You went to the library, you did field research, and we had friends go, and ourselves, we went to visit coffee businesses in other cities, but what we found was that they weren't high quality, they were just minimal quality. But we did find one company that was really good. We were so impressed with this company. It's called Peet's Coffee. It was in Berkeley, California, just outside of San Francisco, next to the famous University of California, Berkeley. And Mr. Pete had opened a store called Peet's Coffee and Tea, and it was fabulous. By the way, as part of my role as one of the entrepreneur among the three of us, I called Mr. Pete on the phone once I heard about him. I just called him.
Yeah. That's real entrepreneurship, getting out there and really taking decisions, action,
Fortunately, that Mr. Pete was an old style guy. He was only about 42 years old, but he was from the Netherlands, and he wanted respect. And so I gave him respect. And he said, Zev, if you're thinking about starting a coffee company in Seattle, I think you need to come down here and see my store. So I got in my car and went there. It was, it's 1,100 kilometers. And I walked into his store, and that was the magic moment when I walked into his store. It was like instant validation. It was
exactly
unbelievable. The store was so busy, I couldn't believe it. It was beautiful. It smelled of coffee being ground every minute and a half. So another bag of coffee was being ground. And Mr. Pete took us under his wing and became our mentor. And it's largely thanks to him that I'm a mentor to so many people today. I want to do what he did. Yeah,
amazing. And I mean, one thing that I've heard you say over the last months is also how you guys really focused on the customer. So giving samples, for example, to your customers who came in. That was quite unique, no?
Yes, and I know that some of your listeners are going to find this hard to believe, but if you look at this picture that's on the screen, there's no espresso machine there. We can't serve you a latte. Starbucks did not sell beverages for its first 10 years. And we sold what you see in the picture. And also coffee brewing equipment. But we brewed coffee, really wonderful coffee, and we gave it away in little cups as samples.
Yeah. And that's what made it so special.
Because, it was like a demo. we were trying to show people that there was a gigantic difference between the coffee they were drinking at home and in restaurants, and that was 1971, and the coffee that we were selling. And they got it. They definitely got it. And we trained everybody that worked for the company in the first decade. Starbucks was only in Seattle in the first decade. We had 6 stores, 300 wholesale customers, mostly restaurants. We trained all of our people to develop a relationship with the person that they were talking to, because we didn't want you to buy coffee once or twice. We wanted you to buy coffee for the rest of your life from us.
Yeah.
And so we built those relationships.
Amazing. And I mean, we have one last photo.
What you got here?
That photo, I mean, can you tell us a bit about this
photo? This is a hilarious photo. I have a very funny look on my face. We are standing outside of the original Starbucks store. But this is the original Starbucks store's second location. It had to move after a few years, just a few meters away. And here the founders are wearing ties and jackets. We're now in our early 30s instead of our late 20s. I think what's outside of the picture that you can't see is not just this beautiful store, but we each had a new car. And I like to say that because it's such a tangible evidence that the company was succeeding. At this time, we probably had only 3 or 4 stores. We had a great roasting plant, and everybody was talking about our company. And coffee sales were really great. We were still, we were partners together for 10 years. We're still friends, by the way. This is a measure of the closeness that we felt. Yeah,
very, very special. And today you can have so many types of companies. This was a very offline physical company. Today is a totally different world. So today you can, technology allows us to build a company and grow it. It's much easier. It's cheaper. What do you think are the challenges in building a startup today, though?
2020 is different than 1970. Things happen really fast now, really fast. And we have a ton of information about anything that we need to know about. Want to know about your competitors? Easy to get information about them. You can even find out easily who owns the company of your competitor. No problem. Today, it's not so challenging to find resources like, Demium, a perfect example. There are organizations like Demium around the world. It's made it a little bit easier, a little less challenging. However, one of the challenges remains the same, and that is most companies, most startups eventually need more money than the founder has. And that leads to funding. And once you decide that you're going to get funding, especially if you need enough that your friends and family don't have enough money to help you, so you have to go to angel investors, and then to angel investor networks, and later on to venture capital funds. Well, then you have to be a professional business person, because that's what they expect. And
then
so that is a big, big challenge. But that one has always been a challenge.
Yeah, and that's a good point, actually, because as an entrepreneur, you're wearing so many hats. It's on the job training every day. So, one day you need to do marketing, another moment you need to do maybe part of the finance. So that's the life of an entrepreneur in the beginning.
Which leads to a comment that I'd like to make. Julien, that being a person who can do many things is really important, especially as you're putting together the startup. But most entrepreneurs, as you alluded to a few minutes ago, really have to surround themselves with people who know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And it might be outside advisors, it might be a partner, it might be an employee.
Yeah.
But the greatest challenge for entrepreneurs, I think, is to surround themselves with people who will compensate for what the entrepreneur doesn't know herself.
Exactly, and funding can be a very important one. That ties into my next question. I mean, how have you helped startups over the last years?
Well, I have a lot of training as a mentor and advisor. It's not something that I just decided I could do one day. And the way I help now is to ask questions. Yesterday, I was on the phone, actually it was a Zoom call, with some people who are putting together an export company in another country. And they're talking about becoming $1 billion company, maybe we'll be a unicorn. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you're not even in business yet. So I started asking questions about, asking them to prove their concept. And could you show me online your financial forecast? And it turned out that they just hadn't done their homework yet.
No.
So I didn't tell them to do their homework. I said, when you go to talk to an investor or a lender, they're going to ask you for a 5-year forecast.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Yeah. So you bring them into question, let's say.
Yeah, but good advisors, and I'm sure your people have noticed this, always ask questions. They don't give orders.
Yeah. And what do you not do? How do you not?
Oh, I find that while there are so many universal things about businesses, it doesn't matter whether you're a software as a service online or selling shoes. There are certain aspects of business, financial management, forecasting, human resources, et cetera, that are always the same. What I cannot help people with is the content of the company. As an example, I'm working with 2 people who are starting a food ingredient. Their customers will be big food manufacturers, a food ingredient company based on a couple of specific ingredients that come from Africa. And when they start talking about the food ingredient and the chemistry involved, I just go to sleep. I have no idea what they're talking about. And it doesn't matter in our relationship that I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Because I'm a business advisor. Usually the people that I work with are experts at something.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen you in action with your advising. It's been amazing with how to approach funding, how to approach business decisions. It's really been so useful.
Well, Julien, you mentioned Doggies In Town, which is a Demium affiliated company. And, I've been working with that company for at least 6 months, maybe more. And we talk mostly about investor relations and preparing for investors, but that always leads to improving the financial forecast, that is making it more of what the investors would like to see. Sometimes it involves connecting an entrepreneur with other experts. For example, in the case of Doggies In Town, I found somebody in their business in a related field who was willing to serve on their board of advisors.
Yeah,
So,
which is
that's another way that I found a way to be useful.
exactly.
A board of advisors is a great trick for entrepreneurs. It's a great thing to do.
Something we learned over the course of the last month. So definitely a great advice there. For all the entrepreneurs listening right now and out there, like you said, it's important to be surrounded by people who can support you, who believe in you. I think that's why it's important to have a board of advisors. Also partners like
the interesting
incubators
thing
like that.
about a board of advisors is that in many countries, not all countries, but in many countries, if you approach somebody who has been successful in in the field that you're interested in and say, I'm just a young person, I'm starting a company. I need all the advice I can get. Now you wouldn't use those words, of course, but that's the type of message. You're very humble and you say, would you be willing to meet with me and 2 other advisors online 1 hour to 2 hours a month for 6 months? That's all. Most people say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, is that one key of the characteristics of a good entrepreneur to just try, get out there? What do you think are the good characteristics of a good entrepreneur?
Well, it's like a balance. Entrepreneurs have to have an ego. They have to be people who believe in what they're doing and proud of themselves. But at the same time, they have to be open to other people's ideas.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everyone listening knows people who are trying to start companies who have the ego, but they aren't really open to other people's ideas.
Yeah.
That creates a problem because then they're not going to get the help they need to correct mistakes before they become serious problems. So I would say it's that balance that's really important. They also have to know their field. They have to be expert in whatever it is they're trying to do.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, we're going to start turning our attention to a couple of questions that were sent in from entrepreneurs, Demium entrepreneurs. But before we do that, I'd like to know, you're one of the co-founders who revolutionized the coffee culture. It didn't happen. The coffee culture didn't exist back then, right? So I was just curious, when you arrive at a coffee bar, what do you order?
I walk into coffee bars all over the world. Well, I did before COVID stopped me. And I will again next year, I hope. I'd love to go to independent coffee bars wherever I am. I walk in, I order a double espresso, doppio, and then I usually ask the person I'm talking to, the barista, I ask them a question about coffee, just an easy question. And it's if you know a lot about coffee like I do, the answer to the question that the barista gives me is often really valuable, interesting. It gives me insight into how much they know and whether they're passionate about what they're doing or not. And it usually, almost always, leads to a long conversation about coffee and espresso and all kinds of things. And I really enjoy that. But I always order a double espresso.
Nice. And over the last months, we talked about Spain. Coming to Spain, after COVID, of course, and when the time is right. But out of curiosity, what would you like to do in Spain?
Well, this cup that I have right here is from a coffee bar in Barcelona.
Okay.
And I would love to go to coffee bars in Malaga, Valencia, and other cities in southern Spain. It would make me very happy. I would love to go skiing in mountains outside of Granada.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I'm a skier. I would love to have a nice long lunch on a Saturday afternoon with you, Julien, and other people and talk about life and business. These are things that I would really enjoy.
Yeah, nice. The good life in Spain. Sounds good. So we're going to turn over to some of the entrepreneurs that we have and sent in their questions. Thank you
to those of you who sent in questions. Thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, we really had fun because everybody was asking a lot of questions. We've invited, we have now from Malaga, Juan Antonio Tejara, who is the CEO of Kaiko. So if we can have Juan jump in the call and then ask his question to Zev.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Juan.
Hi. Well, first of all, I'm so happy of being here. So thank you for the talk. How did you create a big brand known as the best in its market from nothing? What's the key to do that?
So, thank you, Juan. Yeah, how did the company get to be so dominant from nothing? Now, there are two parts to Starbucks history. There is the part from 1971 when the first store opened in Seattle, to about 1984 when the founders sold the company to a group led by Howard Schultz. And Howard Schultz is now a famous entrepreneur. Actually, he's retired. He, at that time, when the company was sold to him, was the vice president for sales and marketing of Starbucks Coffee, which, remember, at that time was only in Seattle and did not have coffee bars. Howard put together a group that of local investors that purchased the company, and then they set about to change it. And the biggest change they made is they stopped emphasizing the sales of bags of coffee beans and switched to selling beverages. And this was due to an insight that Howard had. And he visited Italy and noticed that people weren't buying bags of coffee, they were buying brewed coffee. But there are some things that are constants throughout Starbucks history, whether we were selling beans in the first 14 years or beverages since then. And that is the relationship with the customer through high quality products. I mean, we had fabulous coffee. Starbucks, in spite of having 30,000 locations, their coffee's still pretty good. I like it. But what Starbucks also has is this crazy relationship with customers. And now it's made even tighter and more close because of the Starbucks phone app, which has so many features in it that other coffee companies have a hard time duplicating it. But there is a very close bond between Starbucks customers and the company through the coffee. And I think that is absolutely the key. It was true when we were a little company in Seattle, Washington, and it's true now with 30,000 stores.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you.
And a small company can do that. For instance, a small software company can do more than just have an online relationship. It can be a personal relationship online, understanding the customer's problems, taking their needs seriously, communicating with them in various ways. It's very, very important. It's really not so much about the product in business. It's really about the relationship.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Zev. Thanks, Juan. We have another question from Diaz Cubas, and he's from the CEO of Uxit. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly. He's in Valencia, and he's got a question for you, Zev.
Hi, Zev. First, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. It's really interesting, everything you said, your stories. Thank you for that. And my question is, what are the 3 mistakes you did from which you learned the most?
Well, Diego, you're getting very personal here. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be very helpful to the audience, and they're going to thank you for asking that question. I have made mistakes, and I have learned from them. Some of the mistakes were unbelievably expensive. I would say that one of the first mistakes was several times in my life. I've started other companies besides Starbucks, but nobody's ever heard of them. They're just small companies that, 1 or 2 of them still exist, but they're not big companies. Several times in my life, I've hired the wrong people and then waited too long to do anything about it. And that's not a good thing. And there always are reasons, why you delay doing something about it. You know, why for instance, you discover that a manager who's managing some aspect of your business really just isn't what you had in mind, and it isn't what she seemed she would be when you interviewed her. So it's very important to start working with that person to try and help her achieve her potential, to correct the problems. But maybe you're too busy and you don't do that, you know. So, but there are hiring mistakes. Starbucks made an enormous mistake in its second year. We allowed our bank account, our liquid capital, to go too low. We basically, late in the second year, ran out of money. And that's a horrible thing to do as a business person. You know, you don't want to do that. Why did we run out of money? Well, we had 2 stores open. They were both profitable. Why did we run out of money? We ran out of money because we built a small roasting plant. And that sucked up a lot of money in the company. And we kept saying, yeah, but our stores are profitable. But we were really not as skilled then as we are now. And so we didn't realize that we didn't have enough money to open the roasting plant that we were building. So our bank account went down to 0. Our creditors, our suppliers, got very angry with us. Our bank had given us a very small loan. Most of our money was not from the bank. Called the loan. That is, they said, you have to pay the loan back now. We're done with you. And right at that point, we found 3 investors among our friends who had made, you know, these are men and women, they were in their early 30s. They had just then made a little money. They loved what we were doing. They loved our 2 stores. And they invested some money into the company. We sold them 20% of the equity in the company, and that saved us. And that was the last time we talked to investors. We didn't need their investor money after that because the company was profitable. But, you know, Diego, running out of money is not a good idea. That was a big mistake. And you might, some of the people who are listening to, you know, our conversation are thinking, yeah, that's really great not to run out of money, but how do you get the money? And the answer is you can't keep spending money to develop your company unless you have a foundation of capital. And that means usually investors of some kind, or grants, or special types of loans for startups. But whatever it is, you have to have enough capital to do what you're doing. And in my country, in the United States, what can happen is, and I've seen this actually, eventually companies that are running out of money don't pay their taxes. Usually it's the taxes, the employment taxes that you have to send to the government for the compensation that you're paying your employees. The minute you fail to do that, the government shuts you down. And they will come and lock your business and tell you you're out of business now. So that, I mean, that's another reason not to run out of money. It's very painful. That is one of the great mistakes that I made in my life. I escaped the consequences. We survived.
Thank you, Zev.
Thank you very much.
And just to jump in on that, it's good to make mistakes as an entrepreneur. I mean, you should be. It's trial error. As long as you move forward, that's the most important. That's
well, I would like to add something to that, Julien. It's good to make mistakes, trial and error, as you said, but it's not such a good idea to make those mistakes when you're using other people's money.
That's true.
The minute you have investor capital, you don't want to make too many mistakes then, because they have way. I'm working with a small manufacturer in Chicago, in the middle of the United States. Wonderful guy. He got some people to invest in his company, but they did it as a debt. So they put $250,000 into his company. These are professional investors. And then he changed course a little bit, with his company, and they called the loan. It's going on right now. They said, we have the right to call this loan. We are calling it. You must pay it back within 30 days.
Serious.
And if you don't think so, read our contract.
Yeah.
So he is now scrambling to find $250,000 to get those guys out of his company. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to make mistakes or have big surprises once you have other people's money.
No, that's true. That's true. Thanks, Zev. We have another question from Alejandro Lopez. He's in Madrid. Alex, if you want to jump in and ask your question.
Yes. Hi, Zev. Hi again.
Hi, Alejandro.
Thank you so much for the talk and for sharing your experience with us. I really appreciate it. Yes, my question is, if you have to pick, although I think after this conversation, I cannot know the answer to that, but if you had to pick between a great idea or a great team, which one would you pick and why?
So the question is, what's more important, a great team or a great idea? Well, personally, I'm always interested in the idea. I want to know what's going to happen, and what the market is like, why the idea is going to, meet the needs of certain kinds of consumers or businesses. But investors tell me that I'm wrong about that. That investors say it's the team every time, that you invest in the people, what their capabilities are. And there's a negative side to that for entrepreneurs, which is the people that have experience. For instance, you've been working for a mid-sized company that's doing something with solar power, and you go out on your own to, with software for solar power users, something that your company wasn't really interested in. And so they said, you should go do that, but yourself. We're not going to do that idea. Well, that's kind of scary. And, it's the team, just becomes so important then. And it really matters who is on board. And if you're going to get investors interested, and that's always the turning point. Everything's fun and games until you need investors' money. Then you have to be really professional. And I would say that investors tell me that it's the team. Gotta have experience. So the guy or the woman who has been working for a solar company and goes out to do software for solar power users, she's going to be very interesting to investors because she has so much experience in the industry. Well, that's really nice, but what if you don't have so much experience in the industry? That makes it more difficult. Then you probably need to surround yourself with team members who will impress the investors.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Zev. Thanks, Alex, as well. We also had a question from Pablo Acuna. He will not be joining, but he asked, what is your best advice for entrepreneurs? I think you must get this question all the time, Zev. What is your best advice for entrepreneurs? Yeah,
I do get that question frequently, but that doesn't mean it's not an important question. It is an important question. What is the single most important thing? Financial forecasting. I'm sorry, boring subject, but it is the most important thing. Financial forecasting. And once you start talking to investors or lenders or people who are making grants, then you have to be able to prove to them that the information that you based your forecast on actually is from reality, that it is not just a crazy guess on your part. Mm-hmm. You have to visualize, you're having an online meeting with a prospective investor, and you're both looking online at your forecast, and the investor says, well, I see that you expect customers to reorder your product every 45 days. And the investor is then going to say, Where did you get that number? In my company, customers reorder every 60 days, every 90 days, and it's another number. Why do you think you can do it in 45 days? That's the kind of attitude that you're going to run into. And it will be for all of the important numbers in your forecast. So it has to be a forecast that not only that you like and your partners like, but one that you've tried on other people to see if it really reflects reality. And you have to be ready when you're talking to investors. They'd love to, or lenders, or sometimes even customers. They always love to test you by asking specific questions. Where did you get the formulation for that chemical? You know, how do you know that you can rent an office for that amount of money? You know, they're really kind of dumb questions, but they like to needle you to, as we say in the United States, to pinch you, to make sure that you know what you're talking about and that you've done your research. Then they'll invest in you.
So financial forecasting.
Yeah, I would say financial forecasting. I'm sorry, folks. That is the most important thing.
So you talked about boring, but actually I had a question about what is the most exciting minute in your entrepreneurial journey? Is there one moment where you said, wow, this was
there
a
sure
key
is.
moment?
Oh, I've mentioned it already, but I'm going to say a little bit more about it. You recall that I asked Alfred Peet, the only guy I could find in the United States who knew anything valuable about the gourmet coffee industry. He was, in this country, he was a pioneer. He was ahead of his time. He had been in business for 5 years by the time I met him, but he had also been in the coffee business for the previous 20 years in places like Java and Sumatra. An amazing guy. So I would say that, you know, I was thrilled when he said, why don't you come down and I'll show you my store and we'll talk about coffee. That was nice, very thrilling. But when I walked in his store at Shattuck and Vine Street in Berkeley, I mean, it brings tears to my eyes to think about it right now. I just was thrilled to see the number of people and the aroma and the busyness and the passion and customers asking questions about coffee and clerks grinding coffee and giving out samples. And oh God, it was just nirvana. And it was instant validation that Gordon Bowker and Jerry Baldwin and I were on the right track.
Also,
Boy,
I can imagine
moment.
the experience, the sensations, you know, smells of coffee when you come in, you know, must have been pretty.
Well, you know, that's one of the things about that makes the coffee industry a little special. I'd say also the wine industry has this factor too, which is the product is so interesting. You know, it starts on farms and harvesting and processing. And you can make a mistake at every point. Every point, something can go wrong. Even at home brewing coffee, you can make a mistake that will make all the work that everyone has done to bring you that great coffee worthless. You know, you burn the coffee or something. So, yeah, that great moment for me, the moment of a lifetime, was walking into Alfred Peet's store in Berkeley, California.
Amazing. Nice. Thanks, Zev. And I mean,
I can't, Julien, I can't hear you.
Do you hear me now? I'm not sure if you hear me, Zev.
No. We have a problem.
Okay. Maybe.
Go ahead.
Yeah, do you hear me now? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it's my headset. Go ahead, I'll take it off.
You know, Zev, the most trending this year keyword was "Do you hear me?" Because everybody, due to COVID, was on their phone, on their Hangouts, and they would say, first thing they would say is, "Do you hear me? Do you hear me? Do you hear me?" So we had a little moment there. I'd like to thank you really for your time, for joining us. You know, I also want to say that it's been inspirational for a lot of entrepreneurs inside Demium. We have a lot of other people watching from around the world as well. For those, I also like to highlight that on the 25th till the 27th of September, we will have what we called the All Startup. So if you want to build a startup from scratch, a team, a product, all the way to funding, whether you are in Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, Malaga, Lisbon, Warsaw, Kiev, even Athens, you can sign up by going to Demium, to demium.com, our website. It's been a real pleasure to have you with us, Zev. I don't know if you want to give a final tip or a final statement to everybody who's been watching us.
Well, I'm passionate, as I'm sure you can tell, in my interest in entrepreneurs. And it is a very difficult thing to do to build a successful company. But I want to say also that if the company does not come into being, but the process of going through the startup and trying to get it going connects you with people who then help you become a success in another way, maybe by working for a large company using your talents, that's also a good outcome. It doesn't have to be that your company starts producing a tremendous amount of profit. It might be that you don't start the company, but you wind up with a great life in a related field because of what you learned by being an entrepreneur. That's also good.
Totally agree with you. And entrepreneurship is learning every single day. So I really agree with you there as well. So thanks a lot for your time, Zev. It's been a real pleasure to see you again, and we'll definitely be in touch. Have a wonderful day, because it's the morning over there. So have a great day, and I will talk to you soon, okay?
Thank you. Good luck to everybody.
Thank you, Zev. Bye-bye.
Shall we start? Let me guess. They say you're mad because you dream. Roadless maps, nameless destinations. Coward! You reek of talent. Think you're different, unique. We'll see. You're dying to invent. Do the not yet done. Possible the impossible. But not all alone. With someone like me. And who am I? Some call me the train. Others opportunity. The chance. I'm more than you know yet. Your missing part. What you still are not. What you want still. What you need still. I can point the way. Be the anthem to sway. The card you need. And the voice you need. I'm the obstacle. The shortcut. Memory, fortune, a helping hand, the perfect moment, the right step forward for moving onward, the opposite shore, the promised land. I'm the mistake, the applause, the problem, the solution, the pitch, the goal. I'm Marion, I'm Carl, I'm David, I'm Beth, I'm Frank, I'm Ria, I'm Ali, I'm Jeff, Bachelor. I am you.